Wonderful. So do please take your seat and let's turn back to that reading from James chapter 1. We're going to look at that reading together. James chapter 1 verses 16 to 21. Why has God set me up to fail? Why has God set me up to fail? In the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing how all Christians have a vocation to suffer unjustly in this life. The letter of James was written to scattered Christians in tiny churches facing all sorts of different trials. And all of you here have trials. You've told me about them. And you know firsthand, when the pressure is on, sometimes you respond well, you endure, you stand fast, but other times you react badly, you fail, and you make mistakes. Anger, lust, greed, slander. The Ten Commandments warn us we will do these things. And we all stumble in every way, but each of us has favorite sins that we keep coming back to. Maybe quiet fury or loud frustration, public adultery or secret addiction, manipulative cheating or open thievery, straightforward slander or subtle lies to change how others see me. You know where your particular struggles are, and so does God. So when you fall again, when you fail and sin, especially under pressure and stress, the thought emerges, well, why did he put me in this situation? Tiny church, huge pressure, low finances, big stresses. God knew that this would be too much for me. He knew that I wouldn't cope. Why has God set me up to fail? Well, James replies with 3 things. 1, don't say, I can't help it. It's a lie. 2, don't say, I'll make it right, because it won't work. 3, but hearing God say, I've put it right, gives life that is stable and satisfied. So first, don't say, oh, I can't help it, because it's a lie. James gives a stark warning in verse 16. Please look back there with me. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. He's warning you against fatalistic thinking. Just look back at verse 13, just before our reading. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. Oh, it's not really my fault. It's in my genes. It's my nature. It's because of my trauma. It's my nurture. And God's in charge of all of that. So really, it's him. I'm not in control. I'm just a victim of my circumstances. And my circumstances are all because of God. It's his fault. Did you eat, said God, of the fruit of the tree that I told you not to eat? It's not my fault. The woman that you put here to be with me, well, she gave it to me and I ate. And anyway, you're the one that put the tree there in the first place. We are so good at these excuses. Oh, but you don't understand. My wife is so critical. It's not really my fault. Or my husband, he's so harsh. I'm the victim here, really. Or my work is so boring and my boss is so controlling. No reasonable person could live with that. That's why I had to do it. But what they said was wrong, and it was unfair. The circumstances are impossible to live with. Of course I made that mistake. But James says, don't say, I can't help it, because that's a lie. You are a responsible person. You have agency in life. God does not patronize you. Just look at verse 14. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. You are not simply a product of your upbringing, your environment, and your genetics. The things that you do matter. They have consequences, and you are accountable for them. Don't be deceived, James warns, by the lie that we often tell ourselves when we fail. Well, I'm just a victim of circumstances. I can't help it. I have no control. It's really that other person's fault, or my parents' fault, or God's fault. But James warns you that this kind of thinking is not wise, because the book of James is an application of Proverbs, the Bible's book of wisdom. Proverbs chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, tells the story of how your desire works. It says this, with much seductive speech, she persuades him. With her smooth talk, she compels him. All at once, he follows her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a stag is caught fast till an arrow pierces its liver. As a bird rushes into a snare, he does not know that it will cost him his life. Or as James summarizes in verses 14 and 15, each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. You are a responsible person. Don't say, I can't help it, because that's a lie. Second, don't say, oh, I'll make it right, because it won't work. We're all tempted to give up and claim that we don't have any control. But at the same time, we're all just as tempted to get angry, which means to overstretch and try to take control that we shouldn't take. Just look at verses 19 and 20, please, with me, of James 1. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. You get angry about things. Some of us like to pretend that we don't, because the way that we get angry looks very quiet, or because your anger doesn't feel very emotional to you. But whether you tend to explode quickly or form long, silent grudges, all of us have an anger problem in one form or another. It comes out in your words and in your actions, not necessarily your feelings. Because what James means by anger is reacting to take control of a situation. That's why he says the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Anger here is your desire to produce righteousness, to make things right. And there is a sense, which Luther often talked about, where anger is appropriate to a particular office or role. He encouraged fathers to be light-hearted with their children. But he said at the same time, fathers must rightly exercise anger. And he doesn't mean by that, get frustrated with your kids. He meant teach your kids that their actions have consequences. Train your children that they are responsible for themselves. That's what he meant. So there is a place for human anger externally in our roles in life, as an action, not as an emotion. But even if that human anger were exercised perfectly, it still does not bring the righteousness of God. So even more so when your anger is inappropriate, out of place, a reaction of either fury or slow bitterness. It will not bring God's righteousness. You cannot truly fix things by controlling them. You want things to be right, and so you want to use the law to make it right. Threat, coercion, conditional relationships, frustration, manipulation, tactical withdrawal, punishment, pressure, and accusation. Anger takes many forms, loud and quiet, large and small. The thing that they all have in common is this logic: I'll take control and make it better. But James says, don't say, I'll make it right, because it won't work. Proverbs 14, verse 29. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. This is wisdom. And James exposes two lies here. I can't help it, the lie that I'm not in control, and I'll make it right, the lie that I'll make it better by taking control. Both of these lies are spoken from sin, which is trust in yourself rather than the living God. But James' solution is this. Number 3, hearing God say, I've put it right, gives life that is stable and satisfied. Because if God has put it right, you don't need to take control. The book of James is so frequently misunderstood and twisted to make it sound as though God's goodness to you is conditional upon you, because that's what the phrase justification by works means. If you use those words in a theological sense, in the same way that Paul uses them in the book of Romans. To be justified before God means to be acceptable before him, forgiven by him, and to receive mercy and righteousness from him. And people often twist some of the things that James says in chapter 2 to say that he thinks God's goodness toward you depends on you being good toward him first. But you can see here in verses 17 and 18 that is completely wrong. Just look at how James describes God's goodness in those verses. Let's look at them. Verses 17 and 18. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. How does James describe the living God? He is your Father, not your employer. He gives you gifts, not rewards for works. They come down from above, he says, not up from things that you do. He gave us life from his own will, not from our decision or our work. God is in a good mood with you. He created you to receive freely from him. He gives you everything freely from his abundant grace. That's the theology of James. That's the God that James is talking about. Don't let people lie to you about what he's saying. And how does God give you those good things? Well, this is where James shows that he's a good Lutheran. He says we receive those good things through the means of grace, through his word of truth, his word of promise. Verse 18 again, look what he says. He brought us forth by the word of truth. In verse 19, why be quick to hear? Because he urges you in verse 21 to receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Keep hearing the word, James says. Keep coming to church. Keep receiving the sacrament. Keep reading the Bible. Keep receiving absolution. Keep speaking to one another the words of grace and mercy. Because you're not so out of control that you're a victim, and things don't depend on you so that you need to take control. But merely hearing God say, I've put it right in Jesus, gives life that is stable and satisfied. This is nothing more than the message of Proverbs. Chapter 1, verse 7 tells us, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Don't fear your circumstances. Don't fear being out of control. Let our fear be of God, who is your Father, who gives all good things freely from his own will. So live lives of continually receiving forgiveness. Proverbs 28, verse 13, whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Such a life is genuinely healthy for you. Proverbs 14, verse 30 says, a tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. No harm can come to you outside of your Father's care and plan for you. Proverbs 19, verse 23, the fear of the Lord leads to life, and whoever has it rests satisfied. He will not be visited by harm. And so the wise man of Proverbs says this in chapter 1, verse 33, whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. Or as 1 John 4:18 explains, perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment. And you are never being punished. Because, James cries, this is who God is. Every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. There's no need for excuses, no need to hide, no need to react, no need to try and hold everything together. Why has God set me up to fail? Well, 1, don't say I can't help it, because that's a lie. Because you're made, designed, built to be responsible. 2, don't say, oh, I'll make it right, because it won't work. But 3, hearing God say, I've put it right, gives life that is stable and satisfied. So you don't need a better context, a better past, better techniques, or a better plan. Just keep coming every day, every week, to the message of grace, God's certain promise of forgiveness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Amen.